Oh, even better.
Cool. So we're talking about Pauper because we're poor, basically, is what I'm hearing, right?
Uh,
Pauper, the world's biggest quote-unquote budget format.
Buys four play sets of lotus petals.
that's it.
Buys a playset of foil Strixhaven counterspells.
In the Magic the Gathering community, the people are entertained by two separate yet equally unimportant groups: the content creators who contribute to the health of the formats, and the bored idiots with too much free time who only make things worse. This is the latter.
Hello and welcome back to the Lockthwain Lobby Podcast. I am, as I usually am, your host, Aaron Second of Lockthwain. I am joined today by my co-host. He is the man who you think of when you see a sleeve rip in half. It is my partner in Slime Russ.
That was so mean. What did I do to you this week?
Joining
You're
me,
just mad because I jump scared you last week.
joining me also is a man who's not allowed within 100 yards of any government building. It's Big Pyromaniac, aka Anthony Davenport. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a pleasure to be here. Although I have to ask, how did you know that?
Oh, you'll fit right in. This is gonna be a
You
treat.
you think I just fell into your life out of nowhere? No, 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 buddy. I have to see the badge sometime.
That's
We
good.
are here to continue our conversation from last week about Pauper with somebody who actually understands how the format works and how decks are built. But before we do that, let's talk about this week in Magic. Davenport, you are our guest, so why don't you go ahead and kick us off? What did you do this week in Magic?
Honestly, this week has been pretty low key. I haven't actually played a whole lot. I've mainly been trying to catalog all of my decks online, digitize everything, throw everything up online so I actually know what I have. And it has been a unfortunate revelation of just realizing how much I have put into this game for better and or worse.
See, I don't understand how people don't just have that by default. I cannot change a single card in any of my decks without pulling up Architect on my phone.
I when I started playing Magic, the only site I remember using for deck tracking was Tapped Out,
Oh God,
Oh
you are
man,
old.
and
that's a
I
throwback.
and I it has been helpful that a lot of the decks I've been throwing up onto Moxfield, I've been able to just pull directly, but boy, has it been rough sometimes.
Let's hand it over to Russ. Russ, what did you do this week in Magic?
So I played the final round of Swiss of the online league that I'm a part of, the Howling Salt Mine League. I've talked about it a couple times. I went up against Arlendor, who is on Grixis Affinity, and I got both of my feet handed to me on a silver platter because I didn't have a leg to stand on. And then I immediately messaged him afterwards that I'm gunning for him in the finals, so he better make it to the finals at top four. It was
You
a rough
know,
match.
I really wanted to comment on how well you did in this, but I am stuck on the really bad pun.
A
We
good pun is its own reword, Aaron.
I hate you so much. See, we had a really nice conversation about this earlier this week where I said some nice things to you that I was going to repeat in front of the people on tape. But you know what? I'm not going to do that now.
Do it. I also played I drove 4 hours to play in a Winnabox for Edge of Eternity. I went 3-2 and just barely bubbled at a top eight.
I mean, that's not bad though. Good experience.
Yeah.
We
I
we
didn't
were
care
t
about the pricing. I just wanted the experience.
we were talking about meeting up in the middle of Kentucky, which this meetup is 5 hours away from me, by the way, for something at the end of June. So we were looking into doing that as well. But I'll hand it back off to myself. What I have been doing this week, as many of you may know, is I used to enjoy Standard, and then a lot of the sets that came out kind of wrecked the format for me in an enjoyment standpoint. It's also just been really hard to get into with all the universes beyond. But I have spent the last 72 hours painstakingly crafting a replacement for my eyeshadow deck that is currently sitting at the bottom of gold tier, starting at bronze 1. So it's got some legs, and I think we're going to try and run with it for a little bit and see what we can do as new sets come out.
You love to see it.
Yeah, I'm
Indeed.
I'm I'm really upset that eyeshadow is going away because that was, and I will take credit for this, along with 400 other people. I was one of the first people to try that whole combination out. I loved the design of Moonshadow right away and immediately thought about it with a Born Oculus. I was doing in pre-release testing, and it was just such a cool setup, and I was winning a bunch of games with it. And then everybody started doing it, and then they did it better than me, and I got salty and left. So.
The story of my life.
So, Russ, this follow-up episode was your idea. Having Anthony on was our idea. So, why don't I hand it off to you to do a clunky segue and introduce Anthony and what we're doing tonight?
All right, so segue's weird. Is, we pretty much agree that Anthony is one of the most creative deck builders that we know when it comes to particularly the Pauper format. I'm not terribly familiar with the decks that Anthony makes in other formats, but I specifically asked for one particular deck to be brought, and he brought us three and then two more to very briefly touch on that are sort of offshoots of existing meta decks. Uh, but I wanted to sort of get Anthony's perspective on sort of his whole process for building a deck from seeing a card and thinking, hey, that would work really well, to sort of the conception and gradual building up of a deck until it's complete. So if you want to give us a brief rundown of that real quick, Anthony, that'd be fantastic.
That I can do. I
I
wish
sure
I
hope so.
could.
It's your thought process.
I wish I had like an easy, this is my formula for making a new deck. I unfortunately have to find inspiration from multiple places. So I typically try to solve a problem first. The first deck I would like to talk about is going to be a deck I refer to as Idol Masters. The deck was concepted because I had a friend who would never attack into your opponent to deal a little bit of damage and over the course of the game be able to prevent lethal. He would only attack when he could present lethal on a single swing, and he was getting frustrated that he was losing some games. So when I have this concept of, well, can I build something that he doesn't even have to attack? This was back when about a month before Jumpstart 2022 came out, and I kind of ran with it once I saw some of the spoilers come out. Namely, Creeping Bloodsucker.
hmm
It has just at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals a damage to each opponent, and you gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. In 1v1 formats, this is only going to deal one damage, and you'll gain one life. But it is every turn, and it's pretty low. It's cheap to cast, just turn two. And when you start stacking effects onto this, such as like Marauding Blight Priest, wow, I'm so good at speaking English, um, that has when you gain a life, each opponent will lose a life. And you can start chaining these effects together. And over the course of a few turns, you'll have this well greased machine to just on your upkeep, deal 2-3 damage, you'll gain 2-3 life. You can just play everything in your main phase one. You don't even need to attack, and you can just pass the turn. And when I first built this deck, I loved it so much that when I gave it to him, I immediately, on the drive home, stopped at 3 game stores to pick up more cards to build a second copy of this deck.
Aaron, he just like you for real, for real.
He just like me for. I'm poor because I see a shiny card and I can't walk away from it.
Yeah, yeah, that indeed. This this deck, as well as many of the other ones that I'll talk about, are fairly aged, and I've been wanting to dive into them and try to revamp them. Um, the modern or the Pauper meta has shifted a ton since this deck has came out. It's been probably 3 years since I've updated it, but I truly believe it has more potential. I largely think that speed will be most of the issue. I used to use Dark Ritual to cast out a Infernal Idol, which was also available in that Jumpstart pack to kind of help me curve out to my higher cost spells. And I think I'll need to lean more into that or focus much lower to the ground. And testing is always the hardest part after.
Well, taking a general look at this, it's very similar to the poet build that I've been working on. The whole ideology of decks like Affinity, Tron, these are hard to swing into. Even if you're
Yes.
going up against a spy deck, it's hard to swing into. So setting up almost a passive machine for it is a really interesting idea. I definitely see some cards here that I was looking at for Poet. I love the Creeping Bloodsucker a lot, though. I hadn't seen that. That's a very, I mean, it's the equivalent of getting in for one each turn and then gaining it back, which is a nice perk.
Yeah. Yeah. I truly believe the hardest part about deck building is just finding a card you've never heard of before. That where one of the things that I am truly blessed by is that I've played Magic for so long and have tons of people I can talk to just pick their brains about, oh, is there a card that does this? And half the time I won't know, or they might not even exist, but I can always find something. To kind of like backtrack to this solving a problem, had a problem that he couldn't attack or wouldn't attack. I tried to solve it with, he never played black as well. So this was just a new way to introduce him to a new section of the color pie, as well as a new way to play. And he took that deck and, as far as I know, is still playing with it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Then the other thing that I kind of draw inspiration from is when a set comes out or I'm looking at cards as I'm sorting, and I'll read a card, go, dang, this card is really cool. Why haven't I seen anything play this? So that now I'm viewing, instead of a problem to solve, I'm looking at a puzzle to complete. And this is the deck that Russ so eloquently desired to have me talk about.
Oh, I love this deck is so funny. I love talking about this deck.
This deck I like to call the writings on the wall. It is a Rakdos Walls Infect Fling combo.
Can I real quick, can I suggest a really bad adjustment to the title?
Sure.
It's gotta be the Phyrexian etchings on the wall.
The Phyrexian etchings on the
Oh,
wall.
see, I suggested the writings on the wall are written in glistening oil.
That's also I think you need to reference Phyrexia somewhere.
I should. I'll have to I'll take both of those in consideration.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah, I'll make sure I have to write on the entire side of the deck box, not just the four lines in the Dragon Shield box.
It just becomes a novel on the side.
Yeah, it just becomes a novel.
The Phyrexian etchings on the wall are written in glistening oil, a deck inspiration based on by.
Yeah, so this deck was, or just I was sorting some of my bulk, and I stumbled across a single copy of a card called Glyph of Destruction. I up until this, I've never read this card, and I just went, "Oh, Old Border Legends, cool. What does this do?" It says target wall you control gains +10/+0 when it is blocking. Any damage dealt to target wall is reduced to 0, and target wall is destroyed at end of turn.
That's so dumb.
Oh yeah, it gets worse, Aeryn.
That's so dumb.
It gets worse.
Shame
So
on
then
you
I'm
for thinking otherwise, Aeryn.
So then I'm like, wow, how can I use this? And a card I used to play back in Standard, as well as I've played with it in Splashing Black and Bogles, is a card called Tainted Strike to give target creature +1/+0 and infect until end of turn. And now I just need the final piece of the puzzle. Now, we've at least discussed before, I'm not a huge Commander player. I will play it occasionally, but overall, I don't really interact with that format very much. So I ended up actually talking to some Commander players at my local game store, and I saw a card called Soul's Fire. The important part about this card, unlike other fling effects, Soul's Fire has target creature you control deal the damage equal to its power. So Soul's Fire will have your wall, which is now at 11 power and infect, deal damage to your opponent for 11 poison counters, all by blocking. So now I'm like, all right, cool. Now I have this really cool 3-card conditional setup. How do I force this setup? And yet again, another card. I believe this was reprinted in a Commander product, but I remember it in Origins pre-release called Infectious Bloodlust. And this is an enchantment
Mhm.
that effectively goads a creature. So, of course, this is how you're going to get a opponent who's refusing to attack into your army of walls to swing in. Now it's a 5-card combo because I need a
Wow.
wall, an enchantment, and 3 instants.
It's just a walls guide, Zach. What can go wrong?
This
Yeah,
combo is
well,
fascinating to me because at the very least it's 6 mana. If you get your 1 mana wall and you don't have to force your opponent to attack.
yes. The This is probably what I like to describe as the epitome of I did not come here to win. I came here to prove a point. And this deck is incredibly fun to pilot. I will admit I've gone to 5 tournaments, just like local events with this deck, and I have only ever gone 2-1 once with this deck. But I had a blast every time.
That's fantastic.
Are you
But I,
saying all the other times you've done worse or the other times you've done better?
Oh, definitely worse.
Okay.
Um,
I want to just take a second, real quick here, and just take a pause to talk about kind of your process so far and how you do things with Pauper and kind of how that's related to what we've been talking about, what we've been going through.
mhm.
Going back to SCG Con Cincinnati, which you happened to be there and had a I think we all had a fantastic
Oh
time
yeah, no,
playing Pauper.
yes indeed. Yeah,
Um,
that was great.
but one of the things.
Real quick, what did you end up placing at that, Anthony?
Um, oh Lord, I was doing so well up until the end.
Here, I can bring it up. You guys keep talking.
I think my final placement ended up being 19th or 20th.
Nice.
I remember having some of the best tiebreakers within my bracket.
Hmm.
Um, the I had a record of 4-1, and you had Aeryn and Russ. You had mentioned meeting Marsh Flats and Jason, also great guy, great friend. He was my round 6 opponent,
So that's a 4-2.
and yes, yeah, yeah, that put me at 4-2, and it was incredibly fun game. Super close game 1. Game 2, I had some bad mulligans, or a semi bad mulligan, and then just kind of showing jazz hands, and ended up he took the win. And he ended up making top 8. It was phenomenal to see that. And then I ended up also losing in round 7 against one of my other friends. So I ended that tournament at 4-3.
Well,
I
and that
was
that knowledge, by the way, not to make you feel any type of way, that knowledge is kind of the reason why I dropped after round 6. Because even if I had gone 4-3, I had I knew there was at least one person with better breakers than me. My breakers were trash, dude. I needed to be literally the only 4-3 to have a chance.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but but I wanted to bring that up because at SCG Con we talked a lot about this, and since we've talked a lot about this, I've been really big on the spy deck, and you run a spy deck, and you've been helping me out with it. And one of these processes that I've kind of gotten to see in real time as we've talked is that whole solving the problem. Figuring out what the
Yes.
issue is and moving on from that. And the big thing that we've talked about is how to make spy faster. Which, if you know spy, that's already a
Yeah.
pretty quick deck.
Oh yeah.
It
Oh yeah.
but the big thing, the issue that we both shared was how to get some consistency back in it. And I think it was your idea to drop 3 forests and 1 swamp for 2-2 so that I can get some more
Mhm.
efficacy out of the dark rituals. I think that was your idea. And
I don't remember if that was my idea first. I do remember talking to you about that though. I don't want to take the credit for it though.
I mean, regardless, it was a good
Yeah.
back and forth. And one of the things that I have enjoyed talking to you about Pauper about, same thing that I enjoy talking to Russ about Pauper, but I already said that I'm not going to say anything nice about him tonight. Is you very much have that analytical mind. You know, one of the things that I struggle, I played Standard for a while, mostly came in at Commander. I played 60 card in my early days, mostly came in at Commander. One of the things that I can struggle with when it comes to these 60 card constructed formats is, okay, this reads really well, but is it actually that good? And a few of the conversations that we've had have very much been, okay, that reads well, this is why it doesn't work. And I find that very interesting. That's just kind of a thing that you only get with experience. And I think that's a really cool thing that you bring to the community and the people that you talk to. And I can definitely see that in your
Mhm.
process that you've been describing here. I think that's really cool.
Yes. Yeah. I'm blushing. I'm not used to getting told nice words about me.
Don't get used to it. And I do have it
As
pulled
soon as
up,
the
so
microphones are off. As soon as the microphones are off.
I have it pulled up, and I can confirm, Anthony, that you did get in 19th.
Yes. Yep. The but yeah, the actually kind of I'll add on to the point you had mentioned, like the, oh, this card reads well, but does this play well? That is definitely was one of the last skills I think I had learned as a brewer.
Making
The
good decks.
yeah, hey, I'll have you know, every card in my deck is good. This card's useless.
Back into your thought, Anthony.
Yeah, so when developing for a deck and I'm going, oh, this card is good, but it doesn't quite play well. One of the hardest things was actually devoting the time to play test the deck with specifically with other players. So I am very blessed that I have a decent Pauper community.
Oh yeah.
My one of my dear friends, David, really helped set up the scene
Hmm.
by me. Like I helped him a bit, but I take zero credit in the amount of effort he put in. He,
No, David's great. David is a
yeah,
fantastic guy. If you
yeah.
ever want to play Popper, but don't have a deck or don't know where to go, second and fourth Saturdays at Mavericks in Mason, Ohio, David is almost always there, and he usually leaves decks behind that he has constructed for other people to use. We talked last week that Marsh Flats is a fantastic ambassador for the format. David is right up there with him. The dude is
Hmm.
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And the with testing the decks, largely I said with David developed a good community, so there's lots of people that I can play with, and making those fine tunings take time.
Hmm.
The easiest way to test a deck or a individual card is to play 3 to 6 games of Magic, so play 2 rounds, and the only cards you change are one play set of a card at a time,
Yeah.
and it takes a while to really get the deck to where you feel like it's going, but during that process you're learning what is working and what is not. The and this is largely going to come from a mindset of, if you're trying to push your deck to be the absolute limit of competitiveness that you can, to refer to my wall combo deck, I did not build that deck with the intention to win. I don't need to sit there and go, oh, this card's better, this card's worse, or what my sideboard has to be ideal. I can just toss it and have a good time. And I do think in some, like particularly in standard or modern, um, some people will forget that this is a game. Like, yeah, you can collectors, it's a competition, but it is a game. You should be having fun with it. If competition is your idea of fun, sure.
Yeah. Um, and I this is the first time I've really looked at this third deck, this mill beatdown deck that you sent us. I also
Uh,
took a glance at the 6 land spy deck, and that's wild, but we'll get to that later.
I did want
Uh,
to, before we go too far, I do
yes.
have to bring up my favorite bit of SCG Con series season, and it does involve David. So shout out to David. Um,
Oh no.
About a month before SCG Con, I talked to David and I told him, I said, yeah, my buddy Russ is coming up from Alabama. David immediately kind of knew who you were, like just knew your name because you spent a lot of time at the store. I realized you two had never interacted. And so I came back and I said, yeah, man, David is excited to see you play. Come hang out. And you said, David who? And I totally blanked on David's last name. And I said, David from Pauper. So this went on, right? And it got to the point where I asked one of the employees at Mavericks and I think Russ might have been on the phone, I don't know, but I went up to him and I said, "Hey, do you know David's last name?" And he's like, "No, that's just David from Popper." Completely unprompted, had no idea about the ongoing bit. So we finally get there. Um, I think I asked you the same question at the event, Anthony, but I
Yeah, you didn't ask me specifically his last name, but I did go, "Oh, that's David from Popper" in mid-conversation. And when I don't even remember what you were holding. I just remember you almost I think it was your phone. I think you had almost dropped your phone. Russ keeled over in laughter, and I'm just like, "What did I do?"
And then it finally culminated to us walking over to where the 1K was, and uh Aeryn, I finally recognized who David was because I had actually met him before. And Aeryn goes, "This is David from Popper." And David goes, "Hi, I'm David from Popper."
You have no one outside of myself and Russ had any idea that this was an ongoing bit. This is just so much David's brand that we forget that he's a guy.
Yeah.
He is an idea.
He has surpassed the mortal realm
Names no longer have anything for him. He is just David from
from
Popper.
Popper.
First name David, last name Frumpiper.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, it was so stupid. I immediately wanted to leave it right after he said that.
Uh, what a great weekend. Anyway, deck number three. Let's get into deck number three.
We have
I
no
bel
beatdown. This looks
Yes.
fairly standard to like an early 2010s mill deck from like Modern.
This is pretty so actually we're mentioning inspiration. There is I want to say it's Terry Pratchett. He was a writer who was asked by another writer, how do I make better sci-fi books? Or how do I write better sci-fi novels? And Terry Pratchett, again, I think I'm hating to misquote, said, if you want to write better sci-fi novels, you need to stop reading sci-fi.
Hmm.
And so this list actually is another fairly old one. As I pulled this over to Moxfield this entire time, I was like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do with this deck. It Pauper was a completely different beast at the time. This was before this is before Monastery Swiftsphere was even printed. Excuse me. We can edit that one out.
Nah, I don't think
Or
we're
not.
No,
going
leave it
to.
in. We have to
Real
know that you're
Understandable.
human and not just a robot.
real quick, it is Sir Terry Pratchett of Discworld fame.
Yes, indeed. And the
Put some
inspiration.
respect on his name, Anthony.
That is
Yes,
a
Mr.
Sir.
Yeah, Sir Terry Pratchett.
He was
And
knighted.
he, I believe he also made a sword from a meteor.
For
Yeah,
his
I believe
Sokka.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, this deck was inspired by a very old modern list, and by very old I mean this is back when like what I had brewed together in modern back when didn't even really know what modern was as a format, and I always strive to do alternate win conditions or at least find some way that could make it possible. And this is kind of where I stumbled upon. I kind of realized that, oh, there aren't efficient mill spells, but there's this really cool creature that could smack a person's face pretty hard. So the deck kind of revolved around get a Delver Secrets out, get a Jace's Phantasm out, and try to get some evasive flyers, get 10 cards in the graveyard as quickly as possible with Mind Sculpt or I think Brain Twist and Thought Scour. Instead of targeting yourself, you want to target your opponent. And then just hopefully they don't have a flyer that you can just hit them a couple turns in quick succession, call your game over. Then I did have some success with this deck, but I admit it was hard fought. I think my win rate ended up being somewhere around 45% overall, which,
I
especially
have
at the
to imagine
time,
this deck became a lot worse once Terror became a thing.
Yeah.
oh yeah, when terror became a thing, I definitely that's when the deck was shelved. Jace's Erasure would let me kind of win some super drawn out games, but it when Terra got printed, it just became the most efficient creature we could swing out. And uh, years later, when we got Lord of the Rings out, I went, oh, let's put Lorien Revealed in. Let's see if we can play this deck one more run. And I think I picked up one game on surprise, and then a small crowd, the logo was, oh, this guy's just this guy's playing bad mill. And I went, okay, I'll update this deck soon, and it's been a couple of years and I haven't touched it.
Just
But
really hoping for the Hedron crab print into Pauper.
that's not the only one I'm looking for.
I will say
But
Jace's Erasure with Brainstorm is wild. That's
yes,
just wild.
yeah, the I remember like getting one or two Jace's Erasures out and able to chain two Brainstorms together back to back just really puts on so much pressure to your opponent. It felt like a machine if you could even get to that point.
Mhm.
But it was I mainly want to talk about this deck as kind of like a showing case of how much Pauper has changed, as well as like what decks could be capable of. And I have always wanted to go back to this. I've always viewed that there is a possible mill deck, or at least a alternating mill deck that doesn't have to be Persistent Petitioners or Booger Fog.
Yeah, Booger Fog.
Booger Fog
Also, I'm
mentioned.
calling a judge on you because you have 16 cards in your sideboard.
I saw that when I'd moved it over, and I think I just accidentally hit a two. I fat fingered a two instead of a one. So
Hi, Judge here. I'll allow it.
I'll
I'll
allow
just
this
move.
16 card sideboard.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
I'll just move the. I'll move an extra spell pierce into the main board and have 61 cards main.
The 61 card special. You'll love to see it.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, this deck kind of just came to the inspiration of I didn't see a mill deck that wasn't Persistent Petitioners that I wanted to try to make out.
There's
And
probably a good reason for that.
yeah,
I know how much you love your alternate win cons. I remember you
yeah.
tried making mono blue millwork in Pioneer.
I did make that work for pretty like slight tangent. I still remember at SCG Con, I want to say it was 2023, and I had drawn a crowd at a site, the Pioneer Silver or Pioneer Plus or whatever. It was round three, and I was playing that mono blue mill deck against Arclight Phoenix, and I had drawn a
Oh no.
crowd of. I had drawn a. Oh, my round one was Arclight Phoenix. My round two was Greasefang, and then my round three was another Arclight Phoenix deck. And I had beaten Arclight Phoenix 2-0. I'd beaten Greasefang 2-1, and now I'm playing Arclight Phoenix into game three. And there ended up being a crowd of 16-ish players and 5 judges just watching the game. And I was basically a nervous ball of sweat because this is just a side event. There were only 20 people in this tournament. Why am I getting the main screen treatment here?
Like, mom, come pick me up. I'm scared.
It really was, but I always try to make a mill a viable deck in some format, and I truly believe it's time for me to try again in Pauper
So,
without trying to lean into petitioners.
on the point of Popper evolving and changing, and this is kind of something we look at with every format nowadays. I wanted to ask, as a longtime player, as a longtime Pauper player, how do you personally feel seeing more of these universes beyond cards start to creep in? I'm not trying to start a big debate. Don't want to start. I'm just curious what your input is on it because I have an
What do you
opinion
mean? You have a
myself.
problem with pizza combo winning a CG Kong?
I didn't say that.
I I think for me the only thing I'm not actually a fan of in Universes Beyond is largely the art design. I don't think the art of the TMNT set fits well, meshes well. Spider-Man was a little jarring as well.
Hmm.
But as far as like card design goes, at the common level, a lot of the cards at least felt like they were constructed well.
Hmm.
So I like my personal feelings about universes beyond UB sets aside, I don't really have an issue with them in Pauper, at least from a card design or card power level. They occasionally will have, a haymaker come from left field that was blown away by. I think it was Leonardo.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, that card was when it was first printed. I went, "Dang, White Weenie's got hands."
Yeah. I can't say I appreciated them making White Weenie more resistant to cast down, but
Yeah,
I
I I agree.
my opinion is very similar. I'm a very outspoken disliker of Universes Beyond, but we talked about this a little bit, kind of in a private conversation. I'm starting to have that same feeling. Like I tested out Black Cat in a new commander deck that I built this week or this month. And in a competitive format, it feels different, I think. We when you get into Popper, even standard to a degree, you don't really care what the art is, you care what the card does. And
Yes,
and I think that's the biggest kind of fundamental mentality shift going from Commander to Popper for me.
yes,
yeah.
that is very very well put. I I largely will avoid them. Some of them, largely because if I think an art is pretty, I'll try to usually force it in just because I like the card a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I do think it is fine in Popper. Like there are obviously some outliers that I'm not a fan of, or some um, I'm going to call it like flavor pie or like color pie breaks that I also don't necessarily enjoy. I haven't seen too many lists include a lot of avatar cards, but I remember at least looking at that set and playing with it a little bit. That while the set felt really good, there was like this uncanny valley of this four element series now has is playing in a five color pie.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
at the common card level, that color pie isn't broken near as
Hmm.
much, so it makes it a lot easier to stomach.
Yeah. And we talked about that a couple times, like especially with product fatigue in particular, with all these sets coming out just month after month, it becomes a lot easier to stomach and digest if you're just looking at the commons.
I personally am excited that we don't have any sets coming out until Reality Fracture. I think that's a nice break.
Oh, that is amazing. I'm gonna save so much money.
That's what I'm saying. There's no sealed Magic product between now and Reality Fracture, which looks
Y-
awesome.
You know what? I'm okay with The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings at least seems like it fits within the lore of Magic the Gathering.
It
Yes,
could.
it could. Especially like the first one, like it fit well. It's magic adjacent. The art felt like it belonged. So if they can repeat that, then I'm sure there might be two sets that'll get some of my money, but well, time will tell.
I plan on buying at least a box of Reality Fracture. That set looks so cool, and a mono white Liliana is an excuse for me to play mono white. So
I,
let's
I avoid spoilers where I can, but that White Liliana does look really cool.
so before we get too far off topic, you know me, I'll talk about Universes Beyond and how it's ruining the landscape of Magic for hours at a time. Let's get back to Pauper. Let's get back to the reason you're here.
Yes.
We've talked about a few of your decks, and I think they're all very interesting, which is entirely the point we had you on, is you build cool things in a format where cool things kind of get pushed aside a lot because you've got a limited card pool, you're trying to compete, and the pricing for Pauper is crazy, typically
Yeah.
speaking. But let's give it back to you now. I kind of want to let you lead this segment for a little bit about where you want to go with it and what you want to talk about.
Yeah. So, uh, I guess the next thing that I like to discover when brewing is when you're not just looking for inspiration in other formats, you want to look at a deck that you can see, like a tier two deck is usually where I like to start and try to figure out why that deck works and what you would do to want to change it. Um, I will like to point to my Rakdos Reanimator list for this one. Um, Typically, in a Rakdos Reanimator list, you're referring to it as Turbo Reanimate, which will use things like Simian Spirit Guide or Lotus Petal to uh, be able to chain together a bunch of spells to reanimate a creature on turn one or turn two, and you can kind of just hope that your really big creature will carry you through to the finish line. I like that deck in concept, but I didn't like how it felt like a one trick glass cannon. I wanted to build the deck to be a little bit more resilient. So I wanted to start looking for cards to, is there a way to either gain life in red and black that aren't burn spells? Is there a way to uh, discard a lot of cards or churn through a lot of your decks without relying on dredge? And this was around MH2 when I had started updating this deck, and there's a spell called Discerning Taste. This spell allows you to look through four cards, and you keep all that information hidden. You put one card into your hand, and then you mill the other three. You get to gain some life equal to the creature you've milled over this way, and the spell that was put into your hand is still hidden. So I did keep some aspects of the Turbo Reanimate with Dark Ritual. So much to the chagrin of one of my a couple of my opponents before, I've been able to do a turn one Dark Ritual, finding an Exhume, as well as milling over the Rust Goliath, which is a 10/10 with Trample. So in a Rakdos Reanimator list, I'm able to go, okay, it's been turn one. I'm now at 30 life. I'm going to pass the turn now.
I am also seeing what at one point was a legacy reanimator line with Dark Ritual into Cycle a Troll and then play Exhume.
Yes, that as well. That is also probably one of the strongest turn ones as well. And it only gets better when you can start factoring in Faithless Looting with Dragon's Breath or Dragon Breath, as when you return one of your high mana cost creatures, including a troll or an Oleophant, it'll give it haste. So then I tried filling out ways. Okay, now I have all these land cyclers. I can always play my lands for turn. I have Faithless Looting, Bitter Reunion to keep churning through cards. What's this really good spot to kind of like fluff it out, make everything just a little bit more consistent? And I kind of settled on Scrapwork Mutt. I've seen this in some dredge lists and other decks similar to it, and it's just a 2 mana creature that you can unearth, and when it enters, you can discard a card to draw a card, and it just helps. It's kind of like the glue, or like that helps the deck just turn along. So I took a deck that was already established as a tier two deck and went, all right, I want to make this mine. And this is what I ended up with. And I've had a lot of fun with it. I've had a lot of good success with it. It is a lot more resilient to graveyard hate, just because there's so many ways to discard through. With all the land cyclers, you're able to just end up casting your big spells, which is already sometimes hard to do and very surprising. And then you have the Gurmag Angler, just in case you don't get the reanimate spell. Well, here's just a 5/5 that you can't snuff out.
It's a big black
Nice.
fish.
Yeah, big
I
black
will
fish.
say, I understand that you're running Dark Ritual and also 8 land cyclers, but 14 lands is criminal.
14 lands is incredibly low, and that is true. I will say from experience with all the card draw and all the land cyclers, I've had almost no. I've had easier mulligans than with this than I have with Spy combo.
You deserve everything that happens to you when you play this deck.
Usually I do pretty good, so I'll take that as a compliment.
Take it
You
however you
deserve
want.
you deserve nothing kind that happens to you while playing this deck.
14 lands
That
is just
indeed.
absolutely criminal.
Wait, so I'm playing 4 lands. What does that mean?
You especially deserve the losses that you receive, Aeryn.
Yeah, it's the deck of feast and famine.
Speaking of 4 lands, I would like to move into this last deck that Anthony has brought for us today, the 6 land spy deck.
Let's talk
Yes.
about it.
Because I see a lot of really, we'll say interesting cards. Cauldron
Yes.
Familiar, Conjurer's Bauble.
Well, so before we do that,
Yes.
let's talk about what's kind of basic to the spy deck in here. You've got the Balustrade Spies, you've got the Generous Ents, the Lotleth Giant, Mass Vandal. Steve is a card that I considered putting in mine as
Hold on,
well.
timeout. Why is there only one Dread Return in this deck?
Uh, largely because I was like, I don't really feel like playing 62 cards or 61 cards. And when, as well with having access to 6 lands with Exhumes in my hand, I'm able to cast a Spy and an Exhume, which will lead into
Oh,
either
you are
able
playing
to,
Exhume. Okay.
yeah.
I
That
wanna
makes
talk
more
about the
sense.
thing that I hate more. There is nothing in here that makes a mana of any color except for a
Uh,
Lotus Petal.
No, that's not true.
very,
Jack-o'-lantern is in the sideboard.
That doesn't
very,
count.
very astute observation,
Because I know
Aaron.
you were about to bring up the Dispel,
There's a
Aaron.
dispel on the sideboard and not a single island. There's a mountain in the main board, but there's no we're not gonna cut the jack-o'-lantern for just consistent mana creation for the one card that's in the sideboard.
So Jack-o'-lantern, importantly, makes colored mana from your graveyard.
Well, yes, duh.
That's a
So
legacy old school spy staple.
yes, so this deck was largely inspired through a multitude of games, from a multitude of formats. How I mentioned drawing inspiration. Drawing inspiration from other people is also a very real thing. Uh, Seeing a Conjurer's Bauble to return a Songs of the Damned from a milled over graveyard just for them to generate 20, 30 mana to just then cast all their spells was such an eye-opening experience that I
Wait, is
went.
that a good tech?
It's spicy. I don't know if I'd call it good.
So I, because it is instant speed, I have access to two Lotleth giants. A lot of times what I'll use it is, I was like, yeah, I'd say spicy, not necessarily good. I have used it to a lot of success. It comes more often when my opponent is playing a lot of life gaining. So a single troll will only really, or single, sorry, not troll, a single giant will be able to deal, I think it's like 32 damage or whatever in a single turn cycle between my Cauldron Familiar, the troll, and whatever else. That that if my opponent's playing a much more life gain central, like a White Weenies or a Coggates or something, and they're at 40 life, the Songs of the Damned allows me to recast a Lotleth Giant, so I can flash it back front with Crawl from the Cellar. So use the Songs of the Damned, gain some mana, cast Crawl from the Cellar from the graveyard to return a giant to my hand. then I can cast a second giant.
I like the ideology behind that, but as someone who's been playing the format for exactly a month now, I think it's too narrow. I think it's too narrow of a situation, and the answer should just be win the first time you
it,
play it.
it and largely it is. Like I said, but it also, when you can think of it, is a effectively a single card in a combo loop. The Conjurer's Baubles will replace themselves if you don't need them for a combo line.
So,
Anthony
so
really
And
just hit you with the, well, yes, but actually no.
well, looking at my spy build, putting them side by side here. I am running, just for the stats, I am running 38 creatures, which 99% of the time, if I resolve my Balustrade Spy correctly, that's winning the game.
oh yeah, absolutely.
You're on 29 creatures, which there are situations pretty regularly where that does not win the game. So
And that's why there's
I can
two
understand
giants.
why you've got the second giant, the extra tech. I think that's cool. I like the vibe. I hate that there's no island, but there's a dispel. That's just kind
But
of
there's a
hoping.
jack-o'-lantern, Aaron.
That's just kind of
Yeah,
hoping you get there.
yeah, basically.
God,
I
I,
do think it's really funny to just mill over a jack-o'-lantern with a dispel in your hand, and your opponent goes to counterspell your Dread Return. You're like, nah, try
And
again.
and
what's
that
killing me?
is
What's killing me is the lack of mana production. Like I can't figure this out. My Pauper Spy deck has like 7 different mana dorks or
Yeah,
fetchers,
but your
something,
Pauper Spy deck only plays 4 lands.
and is
yeah.
good.
I've had pretty good success with this. I'll have you
I
know,
would
except
love to
except the
I'd
mirror
love
see.
to see him
match.
go head to head. I would love to
Yeah,
put him head to
I
exactly.
was
head.
like, yeah, no, the mirror match, I will freely admit, is atrocious. But what I love about this deck in particular, because I had tuned it specifically to have a much better control matchup. So
Hmm.
notice with 6 lands, I can just cast the Troll of Khazad-dûn. I
Right,
can just
right.
cast the Generous Ends. So I know, and with the main board Writhing Chrysalis, I have just access to a blocker for all the fairies matchups and also another big beat stick.
Well, and that's part of the
So,
conversation we had too when I asked you for help with the spy deck is, do we want to lean into the control or do we want to lean into turbo? I went turbo, you went control.
mhm,
So I
absolutely.
really would be interested because with my spy deck, what I've learned is if I do not win the race, I do not win the game. It does not grind very well once you get out the block. So I would be interested to see this matchup just because they are two different ideologies, not only for the main board, but the sideboard as well. A lot of your main board cards, like the Writhing Chrysalis, are my sideboard because I don't need them in the main board. That's a beat down
Mhm.
pivot if I need it.
Yes, I definitely leaned into the I wanted to have a beatdown main plan. I said that's why one of the reasons why I run the Exhumes. I still have
Hmm.
access to a turn two Troll of Khazad-dûn. Um, Sometimes I can just mill over uh, because I have 6 lands. If I have 2 swamps out, I'll sometimes play Balustrade Spy early just to try to get some value plays, especially with Exhumes out. If I'm trying to race another combo deck, like an opposing spy. That said, usually I target my opponent if I can see them playing 4 lands, and then I just go, all right. I hope they don't have instant speed interaction.
I well,
But
I mean, tomorrow night, if you remember to bring the things, which I will
I
I
they
remind you
are
14 times.
they are already in a book bag, backpack, whatever the word is, and ready to
Fantastic.
go.
So I will have mine completely together tomorrow. I would be down to go head to head with them and see
Yes.
how it plays out because I want to test mine anyway. We have someone coming down from Columbus to get some game tests in with us too before the Pauper win a duel on Saturday, which I am still undecided if I'm going to or not.
Yes.
Hold on, Anthony. Are the printings in this deck accurate?
Yes, indeed.
You have a
Some of the
From the Vault Lotus pedal in this deck?
I do indeed.
Why?
What is
Uh,
wrong
be,
with you?
because I only owned one.
And it's like the second most expensive one that exists.
Yeah, something like that.
That's crazy.
I won that deck in a Christmas fundraiser for the Cincinnati food drive.
Oh, nice.
So when they do donations and uh, they had prizes that you would win each week and you'd get tickets based on your donations, and ended up winning that in a raffle, or in that charity raffle, and I told myself I would have to see play because it's a shiny piece of cardboard.
That's crazy.
So let's move to kind of last thoughts here. Russ, do you have anything you want to ask or bring up or comment on that we've got into the
Uh,
last hour or so?
Not really. I just really enjoyed getting sort of a peek into the thought process of a very creative deck builder, someone who has a very different mentality for deck building in 60 card formats than I do.
Yeah, I can definitely get into that. And as I'm gonna get into it more, I like the different ideology because like you have your own philosophy, David has his own philosophy, Anthony has his own philosophy, and I like talking to different people about this and learning more about the format. So,
Sorry, David who?
oh, sorry, David from Pauper. On that point, Anthony was supposed to be here. Have you seen him? Where's Anthony?
Where's Anthony?
I don't know. Might be
All
behind me.
right. Anthony, do you have any closing thoughts?
Um, if I have any at all, it's for the people who are scared to brew. Pauper themselves is very lenient on brewing, and of the many aspects of my life, I am scared of failure. I am pleased that Magic the Gathering does not have to be it. So go out, brew, have some fun, meet some people, make good friends
Make
Anthony,
good friends and bad decisions.
Anthony,
every day.
I have said your full name on this podcast countless times now. And I really appreciate you being here to put the face behind the accidental doxing because I was talking to Russ the other day. The way that my brain worked back when I ran all the events at Mavericks was I do not know you based on your face. I know you based on what name I associate with you. So you always were Anthony Davenport because there was another Anthony, and so I cannot say Anthony without saying Anthony Davenport when referring to you.
Yes.
It's
So we
the
need you to go turn to this camera, and this camera, and tell us that it's okay to use your first and last name.
Yes.
It's well,
It is very much okay. I accept all the terms and conditions, but I will not sign any papers.
wait.
We need you to sign a release.
Russ, why don't you send us home?
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this extremely unhinged episode of the Lockthwain Lobby podcast regarding Pauper. Thank you so much, Anthony, for coming on and talking about your very unique thought process for building decks.
That is certainly a way to put it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, unique is the nicest way that I can put it. Make sure you look down in the description to find our link tree, which has the link to our Spotify, our YouTube. I will also be putting Anthony's decks that we talked about in the description. You can also find the link to our Twitch stream where we stream just about every single Monday. We have a charity stream coming up where we're going to be playing some Pauper on there, so maybe we'll get Anthony on for a couple games.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'd
that'll
I'd be
be
interested.
Labor Day. We'll be streaming and doing a charity drive for the Child's Play charity. We'll be playing some Commander, we'll play some Pauper. Maybe we'll have Aeryn stream some Standard while I take a break. Um, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So you have anything else for us, Aaron?
I just wanted to once again thank Anthony for being here. As we branch out and do more with this, we want to talk to members of the community because at the end of the day, we're not doing this to be rich and famous because, we want this to be something that we enjoy doing. So we're doing this to get in touch with the people around us, communicate with the people in our immediate groups, learn more about them, what magic means to them, and where they come from. So, Anthony, absolutely very grateful to have you here. You've been one of our best friends at Mavericks, and I am looking forward to getting some Popper in with you here soon.
Uh, Ditto.
No, that's a Pokemon.
Just say the
Anyway,
thing. Just say the
thank you all so
thing.
much for listening, and never forget that the best wins.
Are the flavor wins. I'm so tired of this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on the Lockthwaite Lobby podcast.
Peace.